This is your place for all things Grand Rapids Griffins and all things Toledo Walleye. This is the Hockeytown West Podcast with your host, Brandon Cook and Nick Harrington.
Welcome back to the Hockeytown West Podcast, your source for everything Grand Rapids Griffins and Toledo Walleye hockey. I am one of your hosts, Brandon.
And I'm Nick.
And we have a ton to talk about because the boys had back-to-back games this weekend, and it was something. It was a lot happened. But before we jump into it, how you doing today, man?
Hey, couldn't ask for better weather. 77 at one point today over here in West Michigan. So I was able to spend a lot of time outside, enjoying the weather. Got the lawn furniture out.
Nice.
Scope of projects for the summer.
1,000,001 projects for the summer.
Oh boy.
You said this year was the year of your yard, so
yeah,
that's gonna be a fun thing to watch unfold. It'll be worth it in the end. It'll be worth it in the end.
It will be.
Yeah. Very nice. Well, should we jump right into this because we've got a lot to go over?
Let's go.
All right, so the Griffins had 3 games this weekend. They had one at home against the Rockford Ice Hogs, which is an important game for their playoff setup here for home ice advantage and everything like that. And then they had 2 on the road in Chicago. And spoiler alert, they only came out with 1 win out of all this. So we'll dive into Friday here. Before we jump into the actual recap of Friday, we were pretty excited going into this game because it was announced that Ville Husso was going to play a conditioning game here in Grand Rapids on Friday. And that didn't end up happening. I was fortunate, I guess I could say that, to watch what unfolded. I don't think many people caught it, but he took warm-ups. He was out there. He looked fine at first. He went and made 1 stop in warm-ups, and he looked like he winced a little. And I was like, that looked weird. So he went and skated around. Coast took the net for a minute, and I saw him talking to the trainer, pointing at his leg, kind of shaking his head like, no. You could tell something wasn't right. He still went and jumped back in net for his next rotation and warm-ups. And while that was all happening, Johannes skates over to Kosa, who's in front of me stretching, nudges him and says, hey, go to the bench. And Kosa goes and talks with the trainer, nods his head, and then goes and relieves Husso out of the net in warm-ups, and Husso skates off, and that's the last we saw of him Friday night. I'm assuming at this point he is shut down for the season, and that is how it should be.
Unfortunate. I mean, they weren't trying to rush him back. Detroit wasn't, because I feel like that's kind of what happened last time with him. And then they go into this one. They give him some extra time, and he's still just not right. So I think he probably takes the rest of the summer off, gets to rehab a better way, maybe more long.
I'm assuming it's going to require surgery.
Yeah, I didn't want to say that, but more of a long-term solution there, and spend some time with the kid and be ready for next season. So
yeah, and it was weird too because like last time he came down for conditioning, he played 1 game, and then he was immediately called back up. First game when Detroit hurt himself in the first period. So This one, we all wondered what it would look like if he was going to play just 1 and they're going to do this again. But Bob mentioned on the broadcast Friday that he was slated to start today in Chicago as well, which would be Sunday. So he was at least going to play a minimum of 2 games for the Griffins. So they were going to take the right approach to it this time. It's just unfortunate that's the way it worked out. And then you got to look at the position this puts Sebastian Kosa in going into this game, a guy who takes his preparation very seriously. Dan Watson does a really good job making sure these goalies are well prepped in advance of when they are playing. And suddenly Coast goes from backup to starter in this game.
Yeah, we kind of knew looking at the schedule when Detroit announced that Husso was going to be down here for conditioning. So we talked about it as he probably gets Friday, Sunday, and that's probably Coast in the middle there. And little change up, but Watson said he loved it. He loved throwing the kid out there. He had to be prepared. He had to be ready, and it's just part of the game because you never know when you're going to have to really go in to relieve a guy if there's a bad night. Like tonight probably would have been a good night to do it, Sunday. But, it just shows that he was still able to put together a heck of a game.
Yeah, and he did have a good game with this, and it also brought us our first on-ice sighting of Carter Gylander, who had to assume the backup role. Because at first in my mind, I'm like, oh, we're going to have an E-bug. Like, this is going to happen. I forget we're carrying 3 goalies. So was good to see Carter get some time on the bench there to actually observe a full pro game up close and personal like that. I hope he took some good stuff away from that. But yeah, it was just a weird start to the game. It threw everything off right there. I felt like the whole team was thrown off, but like we said, Coast did step in and he played a good game. So a quick game rundown here because there's not many goals to talk about because there's none for Grand Rapids. Stubar got the shutout for Rockford. And Rockford had 2 goals. They got a goal a minute 51 seconds in, right on Coast, right at that point. Nothing he could do about it either. Just a bad breakdown of the Griffins defense. And you kind of felt like, this could go one of 2 ways here. And hopefully this isn't going to shake the kid's confidence. And it clearly didn't because he was rock solid the rest of the game. The only other goal that got past him was a Wyatt Kaiser goal. We'll talk plenty about him this episode. That was on the power play at the 14-minute, 22-second mark of the second period. And those are only 2 goals of the game. So Coast stops 22 of 24. Stubar obviously stops 27 to 27. Griffins go 0 for 4 on the power play. Rockford goes 1 for 4 on the power play. And that's all she wrote there. It wasn't the prettiest game. It was kind of one of those games that really we felt defeated after. So I can only imagine how the team felt because it looked like they were playing their hearts out, but there was a big obstacle in their way.
It was the refs.
It was the refs. Now, we've talked plenty about officiating on this pod over this season, and I don't like to be the guy that blames the refs, but holy piss poor game management in this one. It was unlike I've ever seen before. Now, I was going to say it was called evenly. It wasn't, though. Like, what kicked off the whole night was Wyatt Kaiser cross-checking Jonathan Berggren in the back, basically boarding him at that point. It looked like it should have been a 5, but it wasn't. It was just a 2. And that kind of caused all hell to break loose after that. There was a point in time where Wyatt Kaiser and Tyler Spezia start going at it, and it looks like they're about to drop the gloves, and Wyatt decides to try to get off on the bench, but Tyler Spezia, in his first game back from injury, does some rock star shit and pulls him off the bench back onto the ice and starts beating him. Like, loved every part of that. That was probably the highlight of the game right there, I think, for all of us. I think you'd agree with that.
Yeah, it was. Especially it's his first game back, and I'm like, what has gotten into Tyler? Like, I mentioned to you during the game, I'm like, that hit, like, he took some time, but maybe it, hit that dog back in place to him. Like, I don't know, because he was flying before, but he was a little bit more aggressive this game than I've seen him before. That's typically not something you think you are going to see after a guy takes an awkward hit. He's out, he leaves on a stretcher, and this guy just went full force. Like, no cares, didn't worry about it, played his game, which was good to see. Like, you always get nervous about the mental, the psychological part of the game on that side too, which we've talked about with Carter, and he's talked about that before too. So good to see Speech like kick it up a notch, I feel, from when he came back.
Yeah, it was great. And it just shows he's a true veteran. Like, he knew exactly how to come back. He knew when he was ready. He came out and he played his role. And that's a role that could play a key role in the playoffs too. I don't know how much ice time we'll see him get with a full Griffins roster, but at the same time, like, in rough and tough games, you kind of want a dog back there like that. And that's important to have. But the fun didn't stop there because near the end of the first period, a weird situation happened behind the play. Bergie takes another shot from Kaiser. Again, I said we talk a lot about him in this game. We did. Bergie takes a shot from him, goes down. And as he's getting back up, Kaiser slaps his stick out of his hands and it goes flying towards the Rockford bench. Bergie's kind of sitting there looking at the ref going like, are you going to do anything? And of course they didn't. And at that point, Bergie just said, F this, and decided to start throwing him. And he didn't get a true fight. It was called as roughing. But out of all of that, I saw nothing that Berggren did there outside of what Wyatt did that resulted in Bergie needing to get a bonus 2 minutes for roughing out of that. So Rockford came out of that whole scenario with the power play. I don't understand what the ref saw there. I've watched that play multiple times now. I do not get it. The refs have something against Jonathan Berggren at this point, it feels like.
I mean, I mentioned to you as like, we need to get some shirts that show Bergie versus everyone, because it seems like everybody just hates this guy for whatever reason. Besides Grand Rapids fans, we love him. If you're listening, Bergie, we love you. But it's like the refs are always out to get him for whatever reason. I don't know what he's chirping at him. I don't know what he's saying to the refs. Like, maybe he just needs to start doing it in Swedish instead of English, because like it's getting out of control. Because when they start going after Bergie, the game those are the games we typically lose. Like when they get under his skin, those are the games that it's over. Like the team is defeated, the team is not coming back, and it's just like penalties galore. Because then everybody's trying to stick up for Bergie, everybody's trying to get their retaliation hits or little shots and stuff like that. But it's not good. It takes us way out of our game plan.
Yeah, you could tell like those are the games that they start playing emotional. They don't play
Yeah.
with emotion. They play emotional in that one. And that's what Dan Watson preaches that they can't do. And you could see it all over their faces in that game. And just how upset each guy would get at the referee after they miss a call. Like Carter gets elbowed in the face by Wyatt Kaiser as he comes out of the box from his penalty that he took, and he's breaking into the zone, takes an elbow right to the face. Rockford fans that watched the game saw it a different way, but we were right in front of it. You couldn't miss it. He took that elbow straight to the face. And the instant reaction to him is not follow the play. He starts yelling at the ref mid-play, and I'm like, Carter, you got to focus. Like, you missed it. He's not going to call it. Clearly, he's not going to call it. Keep playing. And there was another situation. Yeah, you got to play to the whistle. And another situation in the game happened where Albert Johansson gets hit behind the play, clearly interfered with, gets absolutely decked by Wyatt Kaiser. And he starts screaming at the ref too, who was staring right at it. And the play is going the other way already. Like, I get it. There's frustration. Handle that frustration at the whistle. Like, have that conversation with the ref there. Hey, what did you see that? Did you miss that? Like, you don't go screaming at him mid-play because you're frustrated. I get it, but you got to play to the whistle. That's where Rockford started to take more and more advantage of the plays and get established on the other end.
And like the thing too is we talked about this at the beginning of season. Dan Watson really wanted to make sure the guys were calm, the guys weren't going to be chirping back at the refs, and it kind of seems like this team's gone a little unhinged. Like, and trust me, I know about unhinged. So I'm just like thinking, I'm like, they're getting them out of their style. When they have games like this, it's just I know it's done. Like they're not going to come back. They're not going to get this. So it's unfortunate to see, but they have to play to the whistle. They have to continue with. They're chirping back at the refs. Not going to get the call. Like I've been thinking about this all weekend because I knew the ref situation was going to be a big deal for this episode, and I'm like, let's look at it the other way. You know, like at the same point, like we just got to take care of business. Wyatt was a little shit. He was a shit disturber all weekend, or yeah, I guess all week.
All weekend, he was doing it to Milwaukee too.
And everybody was like, "Oh, he's fine. He's fine." I'm like, he's had 3 penalties in this game. Do you not see a pattern here? Like, come on. This, like, I don't know. Yeah, the refs miss some calls. They're going to miss calls. They always do. It's part of the game. Everybody makes mistakes. But what we can control is not tripping back at them, play to the whistle, continue to play hard. Don't let it affect us. Easier said than done.
There's yeah, right. There's missed calls and there's poor game management, and it goes both ways. But like you said it perfect. Like you have to play your game, and there was some guys in the team that played their game that night. There's a couple guys that I thought did have a really good game for Grand Rapids. I wanted to mention Amadeus Lombardi had a fantastic game, 5 shots on goal. No other stats obviously because no other goals were scored, but he wasn't a minus in the game. I thought he played a really aggressive game for the past few games, having him get kind of beaten up most of those games, taking a lot of hits, falling down a lot when he's getting hit. I think he did a really good job standing his own against this Rockford team that came out with the chip on their shoulder and wanted to cause some chaos. I think he did really well. And Hunter Johannes, I think he had a really good game as well. He got promoted up to the 3rd line with the way the lineup looked that night. And again, I thought he fit in very well with this team. He brings an element of grit that the team is desperately going to need in the playoffs. And he keeps getting these little chances here and there. It's only a matter of time before he breaks through and finds the back of the net.
Yeah. What game was it? The Saturday game against Chicago. He played fantastic. Like, I know where I'm jumping ahead, but I mean, overall, he played a really good weekend. I think he's really coming into his, like, he's learning his role. He's learning the guys, and he's playing really well. He's creating chances. He's getting hits. Like, this was a good pickup for the organization, I feel.
Yeah, it adds a lot of depth and a lot of grit that we need. And you can see the coaching staff likes what they see. And like you said, it was jumping ahead, but he also had another good game today against Chicago as well. Even with another poor result for the team, he had a really great game. And Bob pointed it out. The coaching staff is very happy with him. And I mean, you look at what happened. Emmett Finney came in, he played 2 games and didn't wow anybody really, unfortunately, but he's young. He's got a lot of work ahead of him. But Johannes has kind of come in and really made a name for himself right away. And I think he's impressed all of us.
It's been a good depth piece. Like this, Over these 3 games, it's been a very weird roster management. I'm trying to figure out if Dan Watson's playing chess or checkers here. And we kind of we kind of talked about it during the game Friday, but because I mean we've talked about this for the last few weeks. This Rockford series was the series. Like this is your playoff. This was your playoff series, and he rolled out 3 different pretty different rosters each time, and they played very different. Like there were 3 different styles of games I felt that I saw on each game. So I don't know if he's trying to like test some things, give them different views. I don't know with it, but
It definitely felt like testing different things to see who works well with each other. Like, you saw Tuamisto one night ending up on the third pairing, and Tuamisto is not a third pairing defenseman. But then you look at the depth in front of him when Edmondson is back, he very well could be a third pairing defenseman in the playoffs. So we got to figure out how to utilize him there and get him the maximum amount of output with a lot less ice time. So I understand what Dan's doing. And I mean, you had to jump through some other hoops too. You still got Aston Reese on call up. You had Hiroshi suspended for 2 games for being the slasher that he is, just out there knocking out Cole Gutman for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, which would assume why Rockford probably came into this Friday game with a little bit of extra grit window, take out one of their top guys and make everyone else pay. So what they do? They went after Berge. I mean, it makes sense when you think about it that way. It's BS and it's a terrible way to play a hockey game, but I get it. But I like what Dan's doing. He is testing things. This roster that we've seen in these last couple of games and what we'll see in the last 3 games of the season is going to look very different from what we see in game 1 of the playoffs. Obviously, it'll depend on what Detroit does over the next couple of days here. If they win out, it's still not up to them. They got to have a couple other things happen. But, at that point, you're looking at an Edmondson back, Aston Reese back, a Zarnik back. Like, a lot of things could change for this lineup, and this lineup's going to look really different. So I understand Dan testing things, but this roster is going to look very different for game 1 of the playoffs, I have a feeling. But with that, I think what else do you have to add to this Friday game?
So power play. Going 0 for 4 on the power play. I noticed they weren't doing what they did in game 1, which worked, which was setting up the play behind the net, using the outlets, spreading the puck around. Like that game 1 against Rockford, like that was playoff hockey. They had possession in the offensive zone, even not on the power play. Like they were just more focused, more in tune. Like it just was a fully different game, and that's what I was hoping to see the next 2 games against Rockford. And they didn't bring that same intensity. They didn't bring that same style of play. They didn't bring that same power play system, is what I can say on that. So that was disappointing. And you kind of see, like, obviously it didn't work. So things that we continue to beat the drum with is the power play is still not great. Like it's not even good. I think I saw Bob said, I have to pull a stat, but I think it was like 6 games now without, or 6 games without a power play goal.
We keep running into these streaks of that, and I think that's going to be the Achilles heel of a playoff run here if they don't figure that out. And that does greatly concern me because against a team like Rockford, who is the confirmed opponent for the playoffs, we need to have a good special teams going, and they've got to figure it out. I mean, I look at Friday's game and you see the top line, Berge, Casper, and Mazer, no points. You look at the next night, okay, Casper has some goals. Today, top line did nothing again, really. So, like, it's a concern. But at the same time, do I feel like those guys are putting in like 100% right now? Maybe a 95.
Yeah.
Take it a little easier. But they do want home ice. It's very clear that they do. So there's that. But yeah, that's it for the Friday game. I think it's a disappointing 2-0 loss. It's the biggest takeaway for me is Kosa being able to be resilient and still come in and play his game. He gave the boys a chance to win. They just didn't focus offensively.
I mean, it sucks too because the home streak finished, his point streak finished. Time to start me one. I mean, that was a heck of a streak, though, which I'm sure we'll talk about.
Incredible streak. Incredible streak. Let's hop into Saturday night here, where a much better result for the team overall. A 3-1 victory in Chicago over the Chicago Wolves. Quick rundown of the scoring and all that. Marco Casper kicks it off for Grand Rapids 57 seconds into the second period, his 13th of the season. And that was it for the second period there, scoring wise. In the third, Chicago gets one. Cease got his 22nd of the season. And then it was all Grand Rapids from there. Matt Luff got his 8th, assisted by Janssen Berggren and Brogan Rafferty on the power play. And then Marco Kasper got his 14th, assisted by Tyler Spezia and Carter Mazer as the empty net goal at the end of the game there. Sebastian Kosa got the start in this one again, rolls back-to-back nights after the Wild Friday and stops 21 of 22. Again, just showing how resilient this kid is. And Adam Scheel was his opponent on the other end again, stopping 25 of 27. Griffins went 1 for 2 on the power play. Chicago went 0 for 2. So the PK and the power play were much better in this game overall. Let's jump into the thoughts here because you covered this one for us. I had some family stuff going on. I did catch a bunch of the game in a replay, but what do you got for me?
So this was the first time Kostas played back-to-back nights this whole season. Played well. I mean, he gave the team a chance the entire night. There was some defensive breakdowns. The first period, like Grand Rapids just came out firing. They had the chance to eliminate Chicago from the playoffs, and I think that gave them a little bit more of a push. And I mean, Marco Kasper was all over the ice last night, hitting. He was on the penalty kill at one point and just holding the puck for I think it was like 10 seconds. Down at the end, had 3 Wolves players trying to get him. Like the kid was just on fire. He was everywhere. He was pushing. I thought he was gonna get a hat trick. I honestly thought he was gonna get a hat trick last night. He had a lot of chances. The first goal, I don't know if you saw it, but he sniped it like right past the blue line in the first minute of the game, or first minute of the second period. Just a beautiful, like he just caught him on surprise. I don't think Adam Scheel was expecting him to shoot that.
No, I don't think so either.
Yeah, it was it was crazy.
It was gross. It was awesome.
Somebody else that I want to pull out of here would be Ammo. I mean, Ammo was flying around the ice too. Bob had interviewed, I believe it was Waddy before the game, and said that they're very happy with how he's progressing and how he's flying around. He's really getting comfortable, and he should be taking the next step next year. So good things to see on that end. And you can tell he's becoming a fan favorite too. Just based off that jersey auction. Good Lord. This went more than Kasper's. I was like, wow.
Yeah, he's getting expensive.
He's getting pricey. I'm just trying to think. I mean, they finished with 28 to 22 shots. Chicago did kind of make it a little bit closer that second and third period and there, but overall, I mean, like I said, Kasper was everywhere. I think he was player of the game. I mean, I see Matt Luff was first star, but really, like Kasper, this was his like coming out party. I felt just everywhere.
I think he's had a coming out party quite a few times this season, but it is good to see in these games like this because I mean, Chicago had everything to play for here in Grand Rapids. Really, besides home ice advantage, they don't have much to play for. Chicago had everything on the line because this game officially eliminated them from the playoffs for the back-to-back seasons for the first time in franchise history. So kind of embarrassing there for them, but yeah, good job. Go independent again, guys, and see how it works. Bob confirmed today that it sounds like it's all but already written that they will be rejoining the Hurricanes organization next season.
So it'll be an interesting season for next year.
Yeah.
There is one other guy that I want to point out was Hunter Johannes. I mean, he was flying too. At one point he took a hit right into the face and turned around and like took the puck back up and got a good scoring chance. Like he was pushing hard. I thought he was going to get his first goal last night. He had probably 3 or 4 different chances to be able to put the puck in the net or generate a scoring chance. And we just couldn't get it. I mean, Shields a great goalie. So, but Hunter, like he's really coming in, just like we said with Fitty. He had his 2 games. He hasn't really made that wow impression, but Hunter, like I'm liking his grit. I'm excited to see how like Dom Shide, him, and Lesby play together, or like that grind line. I think he fits kind of in that third line role. So,
yeah, because Shine got most of this weekend off, so we didn't get to see too much of that opportunity together there. One guy I do want to call out in this game because he did get an assist. Brogan Rafferty. It was good to see him get a little bit of redemption because I thought Friday night was probably one of his worst games of the season. It was good to see him bounce back Saturday night and kind of get back to his usual ways and playing a lot better. From what I saw, he played defensively better in this game, but Friday night he was pretty atrocious. And it's good to see that bounce back there. I was a bit nervous for a second.
There was a spot, there was a breakaway. I think it was probably Rocco, to be honest, going down, and Brogan came back and tied him up. He got the puck away, and Kosick made the save. I can't remember how the puck got turned over, but it was in the offensive zone, and then Brogan had to hustle back to get it. So I clipped it. It is on Twitter, so you can take a look at it. But I thought Brogan played really well. It was a good bounce back game for him.
But yeah, no, it's good to see him bounce back. Anything else you wanted to add to Saturday's game?
No, not that I can.
All right, cool. All right, well,
it's basically a Marco Casper game.
It is the Marco Casper show. We're just watching it. It's crazy. All right. Well, with that, we will send it over to our sponsor, meet our sponsorship obligations there. So we'll send it to DraftKings. And when we come back, we will talk about the Sunday game that happened, which was a little uglier than the Saturday one. And then we'll talk some AHL playoff action. So, Nick, go read the ad.
We know hockey games move fast, but with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL, you can score faster than anything happening on the ice. This week, new customers can bet $5 to get $200 instantly in bonus bets. With Patrick Kane, Alex DeBrincat all back and ready from the All-Star game, you've got good choices to make bets on them. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use code THPN. New customers can bet $5 to get $200 instantly in bonus bets. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of Super Bowl 58 with code THPN. The crowd is yours. Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467369. In Connecticut, help know for problem gambling, call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Will Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 plus age varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. cdkng.com/football for eligibility and deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gaming resources.
And welcome back. All right, we got one more Griffins game to dive into here as my cat makes a guest appearance on camera behind me. And Jesus. So Griffins had their last game of the weekend in Chicago, a 4:00 start against the Wolves here. And like we said before the ad, the Wolves, really nothing else to play for outside of pride at this point, and the Griffins just kind of fighting for that home ice advantage spot here. But you'd think the Wolves were trying to make a playoff spot in this game at least, with a 7-2 victory over the Griffins here. So again, Griffin's missing a lot of key players in the roster in this game. Gettinger's still out. Schmidt got the night off. Shine had the night off. A couple other guys too. The list was long. But Hiroshi made his return. Nice to have him back. And that's pretty much it. And that's the exciting part of the game. No, I'm kidding. Yeah. So quick rundown of the goals here. I'm not going to read all the Chicago ones. Just know that they scored 7. But for the Griffins here, Elmer Soderblom got his 13th of the season, assisted by Amadeus Lombardi and Albert Johansson. I want to talk about that goal after this here. Tyler Spezia as well got his 6th of the season. Good for him getting a goal in Chicago after he had a pretty traumatic incident in Chicago, and Albert and Lombardi got the assist on that one. And that was it. Hutchinson stopped 24 of 31 today. Antti Ranta stopped 24 of 26. Griffins went 0 for 2 on the power play. Chicago went 2 for 2. Penalty kill and power play had a rough night. But if Chicago's known for one thing other than losing this season, it's their special teams for some reason is absolutely ridiculous. I don't understand why. And
they got a shorty.
Yeah, and they did get a shorty in there. So before I go dwell on the other facts of this game here, Bob was funny today. Yeah, Bob was killing me on the broadcast because I felt like he was just taking the dagger of the Wolves season and just driving it a little further into their chest every time, even though we were losing. Like bringing up the fact that this is the first time in franchise history they finished with under 30 wins. Their lowest win season before this season was 32 wins, and they're now 10 wins short of that still, with only 2 or 3 games remaining for them.
Jeez.
It's really bad. I don't mean to troll this much, but I've been a Griffins fan since their inception, and the Wolves were a part of that IHL organization back then too. And I've always hated the Wolves. I had to sit there and watch the Wolves skate around Van Andel Arena with the Turner Cup one year when the Griffins faced them in the finals. So I'll always troll the Wolves if I have an opportunity to.
Bob sounds like he did too. Like I think he prepped this knowing like the Griffins are playing 3 straight back-to-back games. They're gonna be tired. They've been on the road. Like if they're gonna put a subpar performance together, it was gonna be today. And so I think he was ready for all of this after last night's game.
Yeah, and he had his ammo ready, and it was pretty funny. And I enjoyed it. Like I said, I'll troll them all I can. I even threw a nice little meme out there about them last night. So if you haven't seen it on Twitter, go check it out. So I'm not going to talk about the negative of this game because we could talk about that all game because it was an ugly game for Grand Rapids. But again, what are we really playing for besides home ice at the end of the day? Rockford's kind of also in control of that. They beat Milwaukee today, so they're still right within striking distance of us. There's still some games left. This game is not going to mean the difference with home ice or not. But yeah, I just don't want to focus on the negatives because we don't need that in our lives. So let's talk about some positives here. And the first guy I want to talk about is positive, Amadeus Lombardi. Okay, this kid had himself a freaking weekend. Like, obviously, we've talked about his development is on track right now. He's looking better and better every game. 2 assists in this game, and the assist on the Spezia goal was absolutely ridiculous. Kid skates around a Chicago player using his speed, gets in there, does a no-look spin pass to the front of the net. Elmer picks that up, puts it on net. It bounces off Ranta right out in front for Spezia to bury it. Like, that play doesn't happen unless Ammo throws that puck out there like that. And just that no-look, knowing exactly where Elmer was at the time, God, it was beautiful.
The chemistry between these 3 have been it's been fantastic. And I start to laugh because we were watching the second period with Maria, and I was like, you know who he was playing with for a long time on the 4th line was Cross Hannes. Now he's got Tyler Spezia. He's got Elmer. Elmer was on the 4th line with him. So they've been able to keep that chemistry together. Spezia's been helping. Like, I feel like Spezia's been able to elevate the game and Ammo's game as well. Like, they've been able to help each other there. And it just really shows you how much better, like, he's been going, like, been getting when he doesn't have Cross on him with him. Like, that chemistry, that did not help. That pairing was just, it never got off the ground. And it kind of feels like that too because they sat Cross a lot. They rotated him in and out. So it was hard for them to get that chemistry. It was hard for them to get that gelling between the 2 of them.
I said I wasn't going to go negative, and this guy drags Cross right through the dirt. Jesus. No, you're 100% right, though. Because you look at this second line since it's been put together, and they've been paired with a veteran each time. You've had Matt Luff rotated. You've had Taro Hirose rotated. You've had Spezia rotated. You pair Elmer and Amadeus with a veteran player that has offensive output, they're going to do well. But I don't think you can break up Elmer and Ammo at this point. Like, I think that might just become... Like, if they go to Detroit, they got to go together. Like, that's just how it's going to be. Like, it's funny because it's the smallest guy on the team with the biggest guy on the team, and it just works. But
the other thing too with like Cross is like, I don't know, at the beginning of the season he hit so many posts. So it's like if one of the or 2 of those go different, you know, like not 1 or 2 of those, but if any of those shots go differently and they go in, like, where is his development? Where is his stats? And where is Ammo stats at that point? Elmer's like, how much more elevated are those if he hit the back of the net instead of the post? Like, I think that's his whole season in a nutshell was crossbars, cross posts. Like, he's been so even last night, he had a chance and the goalie dropped, like he had it, and then he had to catch it again. Like, I'm like, he's been so close all year. Like, I feel for the kid because it's like he's trying so hard. And I don't mean to dog on him, but it's just like, it's a night and day difference with Ammo and Elmer up there with Tyler than it is with Cross. Like, and I feel bad about it, but it is. And I'll be interested to see what happens with Cross over the offseason. I'm hoping he works out a shot and those posts aren't a thing anymore, you know?
I'll be interested to see what, like, we keep saying, like, is he going to turn into a dog in the playoffs or not? And it still could happen. Who knows? But Amadeus, like, he made it clear to us, like, this season wasn't about points for him. This season was about adjusting to this level of hockey, finding his way, get bigger, get stronger. And you can see it, like, he's getting bigger in the middle of the season when you're still burning 1 million calories playing this game. He's still getting bigger. He's getting bulkier. He's still maintaining his speed and his skill set while doing that. If he gives himself the Lucas Raymond treatment this offseason, where you just all of a sudden put on way more muscle than probably a human should in a 4 or 5 month period. Like, he's going to come into next season an absolute terror for the rest of this league. And I'm going to love every second of it, because obviously we're fan favorites of his, or he's a fan favorite of ours. I don't know what I wanted to say there. We're big fans of him.
Well, he's big fans of us too.
Maybe.
Yeah.
It's good to see. Like, I like the direction he's going, and he's turning it on at the right time. This is a time of year you want to see him turn it on. And again, part of his draft profile was how he can play in high pressure games. These playoff games are going to be something really interesting to see how he plays in them, especially if he's in that second, third line territory. Still with the full lineup, I'll be really excited to see what he brings to the table.
Yeah, I'm excited to see. I think, and we keep saying about next season with him, and I think we really have to kind of look back at the guys that Detroit has drafted out of the O. I mean, you look at Rasmussen. It took him 3 years to really find his spot, find his groove, and like his role.
He's still finding it.
He's still finding it. Joe Veleno, like another guy from juniors. Like, these guys take a little bit longer to develop, to get in there, to go. Like, I try to think of somebody else from the juniors that we've drafted. Cross, juniors, Emmett Finney. So, like, the other thing, too, is you look at Nate Danielson coming out of the juniors, crushing it in the playoffs, absolutely crushing it. I think Detroit fans are like, well, he's going to be up here next season. I don't think he will.
Think so either.
Based off of what I'm seeing by everybody else that we've drafted out of juniors. Like, I think that takes him a full year in the A or 2, maybe 3.
Granted, he blew the doors down in preseason, and
he did.
If this is 3 years ago, Red Wings, he probably started the season in Detroit. Like, let's be real. But yeah, I would like to see him spend at least half a season in Grand Rapids next year. I think that's the right move for his development. A full season would be better, but I think at least half.
I think you see Marco for half, and you see Nate Danielson up for the full, or for you see Nate Danielson here for the full season next year.
I can't wait for these off-season debates with you. It's going to be so much fun. It's going to be such a blast. 2 other guys that I have to talk about in this game.
Yep.
1, Albert Johansson. Albert Johansson today. Like, he was jumping up in the play, making great moves. He had an assist today. He was one of his better games I've seen recently. He was playing to like his top tier skill level in this game. He never quit, even down 4, 5, 6 goals. He never quit. And that's what I love seeing in him. It really felt like in this game, he took that number 1 defensive player spot on the team and finally wore it the way he should be. And I loved seeing that.
Yeah, I'm excited to see, like, I think everybody here that's listening was watching Detroit Saturday night and seeing Simon getting the goal. We'll touch on that in a second. But, like, I was screaming at the TV. I was watching. I was in tune with the last, 2 minutes of the game and overtime. And so, everybody's rooting. We want them to make the playoffs. Trust, with every fan, we want them to make the playoffs. And if they make those playoffs, they have to win the next 2 games. But we're going to be without Simon, so we need that guy to step up. And with Redeem out, with Shimmick out today, Albert had to really pick up that spot today. And Didier played today too, but
Didier didn't play today.
He's usually on the third line, holding it down. So I mean, we're looking at Albert, we're looking at Vollander. We need these guys to start stepping up a little bit, and it's good to see Albert do it. Volley did last night. He was joining the rush. They're really getting the defenseman back into the play, joining the rush, and creating the options, the opportunities. So it's good to see.
Again, I think that goes back to the trialing different things, like getting the defenseman back in the rush in a couple games, seeing what that looks like again, like understanding what we have to work with going to the playoffs. It's Dan playing chess right now, trying to figure out what his next move is going to be. And honorable mention to Didier in this game. I mean, the team got pumped 7-2. He was still a +2 in this game. He's the only player outside of Amadeus and Tyler Spezia who were a plus in this game. So when you get pumped 7-2 and you find guys that are a plus, those are guys you got to point out for their game that they played today. And the last guy I want to talk about though is Elmer. I mean, Goal and an assist today for him. It was funny because in the first period, I watched him get hit. It was a little bit of an awkward hit. He didn't like it. And it was from Chris Terry. And he immediately shoved Terry to the ground right afterwards. And I was like, oh, there's that fight we keep wanting to see in him. We haven't seen it for the past couple games. There it is. And then he goes on to score shortly after that and gets an assist later in the game. Like, when the dog is unleashed in Elmer, he's an unstoppable force. And I just want to figure out, how do we tap into that every single game? Like, do we got to meet him before the game and like say something mean to him? Like, what do we got to do to get this guy going?
We just got to punch him in the face if we can reach that high.
I can, you can't. I'm kidding.
Like, really, like when he's playing physical, when he's going at it, like that's the best Elmer we have. And that's what you want to see out of him. Like when he's being that aggressive, that's the Elmer we want to see. Like, I know I don't think that was part of his game before. And it's something that he needs to kind of mold into. Even meeting him as a person, he's a shyer person. He's not very talkative. He's very quiet. Like, he just needs to be more aggressive and more like drive the play. I think that's what we're looking for out of Elmer.
He has the skill level to be that play driver too. So once he like really gets that going, like I still fully believe there's potential for Elmer to end up in Detroit in some fashion. Like I fully see it there still. He is not a lost prospect. He's not a burnt prospect. He's not overcooked. Like there's something there. We just got to figure out how to make it consistent. And it got really consistent there during the midway point of the season when the hot streak really started, and then it kind of slowed down. But seeing that grit come out today, I was just like, ooh, okay, he's back. That's what I like to see. And that's what we need to have in the playoffs. Like, you need those guys doing that stuff. And we got that shove on Terry was just hilarious.
We need him to hang out with Michael Rasmussen over the summer. Like, that's like, if we can.
because then he'll develop the crazy face. And I don't know how I feel about that.
Another crazy Swede. That's what we love.
That's true. But yeah, those were the guys I wanted to hit on there. Like, I could go through the whole roster and we could be a little negative about some things, but we won't. I will say Curtis Hall actually was noticeable today too, so I liked seeing that. You think he's starting to finally fully adjust to Grand Rapids, so good to see. But with that, any final thoughts for you on this game?
I mean, I was really trying. Like, I see the score is 7-3, 7-2, whatever. It's a terrible score. I get it. Bob was saying too, like, we don't have the full roster. Like, we've been moving guys in, moving guys out. This isn't a reflection of the season. So I think that's why we're not going to spend a whole lot of time on it, is that the roster is going to look very differently in 2 weeks. We can't clinch the division. Milwaukee's already did that. So now it's just home ice. And we have 2 games against Iowa and 1 game versus Milwaukee.
And Milwaukee's sitting everybody in that last game.
Like, as they should.
They don't have anything to play for at that point. They don't care.
So I mean, I think
anticipate that one to be very chippy, actually.
You think so? Why?
There's that LaRue kid. Anytime he's involved. If you go look at the score sheet from Milwaukee and Rockford on Saturday night, you would see Rockford picked up right where they left off, and there was probably 6, 7, 8, 9 fighting penalties in that one. I don't know. It was freaking crazy.
Wow.
So,
what did they?
Or roughing and fighting. Sorry.
What did the Twitter users say about that?
Nothing. Even with Milwaukee's admin trolling as much as they like to troll. I love their social page. It's so good. I even reposted one of their things last night. So there's one last piece I want to add to the weekend before we jump into the playoffs, because I noticed it with today's game in Chicago. And I have been very critical of one individual in the AHL over this season. And we've seen him back for 2 games since I was super critical.
Your favorite
player. It was
player.
official. It was Grady Hamilton. Everybody who's listened to that episode knows it was a 20-minute rant about how much I couldn't stand the guy. We've had him back for 2 games. I've got to say, I want to recognize improvement. That's 2 well-managed games. Even today, it was a very well-managed game. I just want to make sure that's recognized. I want to own up to that and say, hey, you know what? It's good to see he realized he was wrong.
People could change. People could get better.
It's an official that floats through the Central Division quite a bit, and I highly anticipate running into him in the playoffs. So,
and it was an away game, so even better.
Not, it was even called. 2 power plays for each team. Not what Milwaukee went through today, where I checked. I think midway through the third, Rockford had 7 power plays to their 1.
Jesus.
Yeah. again, mismanaged games make things really interesting, right?
Oh God, I hope we have a better officiating crew for the playoffs where they just kind of, I don't know, game management.
We just can't have the ones from Friday night. Like, we just can't.
I'm glad you brought up Grady because I was going to say something if you weren't, and I forgot. So,
Like I said, I was super critical. Officiating is a hard job, and they're always going to be the guys that are called out, and I'm still going to call them out and whine and complain because that's just, I'm a fan at the end of the day. I'm not an analyst. I'm not a professional. I'm a fan, and I'm always going to hate when my team gets slighted. And I felt like Friday they were, and it pissed me off. And last time Grady pissed me off, I made sure I mentioned it. But again, I like well-managed hockey games that are enjoyable to watch. And the past couple we've had them, they've been good. So outside of that, let's dive into the AHL playoffs a little bit because almost everything is set for teams that have clinched. Almost. You know what division hasn't been settled yet. It's not even, like, if you've listened for the past 3 weeks, you know what division's not settled. But the rundown, Atlantic Division. Hershey has officially clinched the division, and the teams behind them, Providence, Wilkes-Barre, Charlotte, and Hartford, have all clinched a playoff spot. In the Central Division, Milwaukee has clinched the division. Grand Rapids, Rockford, Texas, and the Manitoba Moose, a team I didn't think would make it at all, ended up squeaking in there last minute thanks to the Griffins beating the Wolves last night. In the Pacific, Coachella clinched that division. Tucson, Ontario, Abbotsford, Colorado, Bakersfield, and Calgary have all clinched. In the North, Syracuse, Rochester, Cleveland, Toronto have all clinched. The battle for the last spot still falls between Belleville, Laval, and Utica. Belleville is at 76 points with 3 games remaining. Laval at 74 with 2 games remaining. Utica at 73 with 3 games remaining. So they're going to take it down to the wire. And shout out to Todd Nelson, ex-Griffins coach in the Hershey Bears. They did clinch the league title for the regular season. So congrats to Todd Nelson, one of the best coaches I've ever seen run through Grand Rapids. So good for him. Love seeing that. But these playoff matchups are going to get interesting. I mean, it's all but confirmed that Grand Rapids plays Rockford. We just don't know who has home ice in that one. Texas and Manitoba will play their play-in games, and Milwaukee will await the winner of those games. So be interesting.
The one aspect too for that North Division. So Laval plays Belleville back-to-back games, home and home for that. So that's Friday, Saturday. So
Laval's last 2 games of the season are against Belleville.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you remember earlier in the season, there was a clip of a Belleville player just absolutely rocking the Laval goaltender.
No.
These 2 teams hate each other. Like, this is as big of a rivalry as, Grand Rapids, Milwaukee, Grand Rapids, Chicago. Like, these 2 teams absolutely cannot stand each other.
Who was the team that clinched this week that did it off of a goalie goal? I sent it to you guys, and I can't remember who it was. It might have been Wilkes-Barre.
Who was the goalie that did it again? No, it was Hartford. It was Hartford.
Yeah, Hartford.
Yep. What a wild way to. Yep. I do love goalie goals, though. I'll always enjoy those, no matter who's getting them. I still feel like Coase is going to have one day, but that's just me.
He almost had an assist the other night.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, that settles the AHL playoffs there. We'll still await the North Division. I didn't know the Belleville-Laval schedule. That makes that so much more interesting now. And I really wish we had the full AHL TV package because I think those 2 games would be must-watch hockey. Hopefully they're one of the free games so I can watch that.
It's going to be a bloodbath. Friday, Saturday.
Oh, it's going to be horrible. So that wraps up everything AHL that we really needed to talk about in this episode. We mentioned it earlier, and it deserves an honorable mention because he's still probably going to end up back in the Grand Rapids Griffins, depending on how things go with Detroit. And Simon Edmondson getting his first goal of the season with the Red Wings in Toronto with one of the best Red Wings celebrations I've seen all season. Even when he goes down to his one knee like that, still as tall as Patrick Kane. Like it was great. That goal, it was just it showed the offensive mindedness of this defenseman. That little give and go to Perron, getting that puck back and just burying it. Stick was on the ice ready. He knew that was going to be the play. He just had that hockey sense that was going to happen and buried it. And it's so good to see him get that goal finally.
little monkey off the back. And I mean, there was an interview with Simon, with Danielle Bruce and Art Ragnar, and they just said Lalonde's kind of been holding him back a little bit, wanting him to make more defensive, smart decisions. So kind of let him off the leash a little bit on this one to get that goal.
Well, when you pair him with a boat anchor every game, yeah, you got to make sure he's smart and plays defensively because he's playing the position for two people.
Yeah. So
sorry, Dan Petrie's son. But no, I'm glad Simon got that goal. He's been playing so well in Detroit. Like he's clearly not going to be back in Grand Rapids next season. So just enjoy the moments while we have him. But I'm excited to see what he's going to do up there next season. It's going to be absolutely wild.
Yeah, I mean, like they called him up at the right time. You know, I don't think they should have called him up earlier because he was making some crazy mistakes before. He's more sound. He's more defensive. He's more ready for that time when they did call him up. And he's helping the Wings get into that spot, playing meaningful games with 2 games left. I mean, what more could you ask for right here? So
I think big minutes too.
Big minutes, and he's helped both teams get to where they needed to be. So you could kind of almost put him down as the MVP for the organization.
Honestly, like he's done a great job at both levels, man. Like it's pretty crazy to think about. So I'm excited. I'm sad to see him go, but I'm happy to go see what he's going to do with this Red Wings team. But it's time to talk a little bit of ECHL. I know it's not Toledo Thursday, but the regular season is officially wrapped up for the Toledo Walleye. Obviously in the playoffs, obviously clinched their division. We've talked about that a million times.
Wait, did they have one more game?
No, they were supposed to play on Friday, but due to flooding in Wheeling, they couldn't play, and that game will not be rescheduled. Yeah,
I think it wasn't playoff implications for either team.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm pretty happy about that one. I think most of the fans are pretty happy about that as well, because now they get a week to settle in and get ready for the playoffs, and we know who their opponent is, and we've talked about it all season. Is this going to be the team they end up playing? And sure enough, it is the Kalamazoo K-Wings, who in the regular season has been really the only team in the division that they've struggled with. Now, regular season, playoffs are a whole different beast. I think Toledo's got the upper hand on Kalamazoo here. I don't think it's going to be a 4-game sweep like the first round last year, unless they blow our minds and do that. That'll be awesome. Selfishly, I'm excited because we'll be able to go to a couple playoff games, hopefully, and they're a lot closer than driving all the way to Toledo. But I personally am maybe making the trip down there to see the Fish in person for game 2. We'll keep everyone updated with that. But I'm excited to see this matchup unfold. I think it's going to be really interesting.
Yeah, just go through the schedule real quick. The first game is Friday, April 19th in Toledo. That game starts at 7:15. Then Saturday, so they play back-to-back. 7:15 again. Game 3 is at Kalamazoo on Wednesday, and game 4 is Wednesday. Game 4 is Friday, April 26th. I'm looking at. I don't think it'll be a sweep for either team, so I'm thinking game 6, Tuesday, April 30th, is probably my best chance to go. Possibly game 5, Saturday, April 27th, in Toledo. I think game 6 is in Kalamazoo, so. I'm looking at that one. I'm hoping I can make it down. I'm excited to see what playoff hockey looks for Kalamazoo, because we did.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. It's been a while.
It has.
It's been a while. I don't know what the last time it was, but it's been a while.
Cool. And I'm sure they're feeling pretty confident knowing that they beat Toledo the regular season series. So.
It strikes me as a confidence level that they'll probably have that's going to end up biting them in the butt.
But, I hope so.
Yeah, me too.
And it's the best matchup for us. So we're only 30 minutes away, so we can drive down, catch a game, not feel like that travel hangover that I have to deal with going to Detroit. So it's a little bit easier, and I'm excited to see what the atmosphere is. Because Kalamazoo brings it, even in the regular season, even when they're stadium's a quarter away full, they're still chirpy, they're loud, they're a little bit of aggressive. It's good things to see. So
I'm more curious to see how the Fish fans travel for the playoffs, because I know they travel well and they travel in force, I'll be very curious to see what those home games for Kalamazoo look like, because I think they'll be about 50-50, if I had to guess.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
I love Toledo fans. They're so great. One other part I got to mention with that too, though, is they do cap off the regular season with their 14th win in a row. We saw Dan Watson's Toledo Walleye last year hit 18 wins in a row in the regular season. Pat Mikish's Walleye go and do almost the same thing, but at a different time in the season. Dan and them did it about February. Pat got the team rolling again at the end of the season. Going into the playoffs on a win streak like that is absolutely freaking absurd. It's ridiculous. Whoever you're playing against has to take that into account. Like, you are rolling at this point. Both your goalies are rolling. The offense is rolling. Hell, they got a win today, and Brandon Hawkins was a healthy scratch, so he can get a playoff day off. Like, or a rest period before the playoffs. But to take a 14-game win streak into the playoffs, it's insane. I don't think I've ever seen anything like that.
No, I mean, if you want your guys going, you want them going right now. This is the time. Like, this is like, we always say March is Izzo time, which really hasn't happened in a long time. But, like, maybe this is Pat Mikish's time. Like, you got the guys going at the right time. They started the season well. They went through some trouble, a couple of setbacks, that's when you want to face that adversity, is in the middle of the season. It's not at the end. It's not at the beginning. And now you got the guys pumping. They're going. The confidence is there. Everybody's gelling. You're still bringing in new guys. Like, they were bringing in a couple new guys towards the end of the season too, some of the college kids. So, I mean, it's fantastic the way this is going. Like, you've got everybody going at the right time. So
they actually just signed a guy that was released by Kalamazoo too, who had like 40 points this season. So that's another interesting bit that makes this even more entertaining to me. So we'll get more intel on that for Toledo Thursday for everybody. But yeah, I want to drop that little nugget in there. That's crazy.
I didn't see that.
But I will leave the Toledo fans with one more little tidbit. If you made it this far into the episode, you get the exclusive announcement that this week's Toledo Thursday episode will feature an interview with none other than Brandon Hawkins himself. He will be on the pod for a full interview with us. We are super stoked for this opportunity. I think this is going to be a really fun one. Based off what we've seen, he seems like a really fun, chill guy to talk to. And I can't wait to pick his brain about the game of hockey, because we've said he's a human cheat code. We've talked about all the ridiculous things he's done on ice. Just go look at his highlight reels. They're absolutely insane. So just to understand like how he does that and how he prepares himself for games as a player, like, I'm really excited to dive into that with him.
I'm excited. Like, I don't follow Toledo as closely as a lot of other folks do. And like, you got me hooked out on last year, Brandon, because I didn't know like the levels and how the organization worked and things like that. So doing a lot of research, listening to his past interviews that he's had on other podcasts, like, I'm excited to be able to talk with him. He's a very like chill guy, like you said, but also very positive mindset. And I always want to be able to get to know the person more than I want to get to know the player. So this interview it's going to be interesting to see like how that goes and when we talk with him, and just kind of pick his brain on how the season's gone and everything else, and the Toledo culture. So from the player's perspective.
Yeah, I'm really excited to find out more about that. And, we've talked about it before. We want to pride ourselves as being a podcast where a player can come on and we're going to get to know the player. We don't want to know all the details. We want to get to know them as a person. Everyone can see them as a player. Everyone can watch them on the ice, but you don't get many opportunities to sit down and chat with that player and truly understand them in their thoughts and their processes going into these games. So I'm excited to dive into it with him. He seems pretty excited too. So that's what makes it even more fun for us.
Yeah.
But yeah, we wanted to make sure we got that announcement out there. For those that listened this far, you'll see the official announcement with maybe, the request for some listener questions come up this week on Twitter as well. So think about that as you're listening on here. But with that, I think that's all we have for this Monday episode, if I'm not mistaken.
That's all I got.
Perfect. Well, we will wrap this one up. Thank you to everyone for tuning into the Monday episode here. Shout out to our sponsors, Everything Hockey. Go to everythinghockey.com. Use code WEST. Save 10% off your order. Pick up some sweet hoodies and t-shirts for the summer season. Bonfire with an Everything Hockey hoodie. It's a pretty comfy situation right there. I like that. Also, shout out to the Hockey Podcast Network for being amazing partners, and DraftKings as well for being fantastic sponsors of the show. With that, thank you again to everyone. Go Griffins. Go Walleye. Go Red Wings. It's a big week ahead for the Red Wings. God, guys. Just be an interesting one. Just win. In Washington and Pittsburgh, just lose. Yeah. But yeah, thank you, everyone. Have a fantastic week. We will talk to you all on Thursday.
Love you. Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to the Hockeytown West Podcast. Be sure to check us out on Twitter at HockeytownWPod and your host, Nick at GR Hockey Guy and Brandon at Brandon GR Hockey.